Uh-oh. Black Benchmade box on the review table. Whatever it is, it must be cool. Stay tuned, guys. Let's take a look at it. Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of 19 January 2014, and yes, we do have a black box from Benchmade. This one from the sharpening bench, not my knife. It belongs to my customer and YouTube viewer, Ryan. He sent me this one as part of a 3-knife shipment. This one, the Benchmade 950 Rift. And I have a little bit of history with the 950 Rift that I'm going to talk to you about. He sent me this along with his 940 and an S30V Kershaw Blur, all for sharpening. We've seen the Blur on this channel, and we've certainly seen the 940 on this channel, but we have not seen a Rift. So let's talk about this one a little bit, and then I'll tell you a little bit of my history with the Rift. It is, like the 940, a Warren Osborne design, and can you see the family resemblance in the blade? It kind of looks like a 940 with a different aspect ratio, doesn't it? If you took a 940 and made it broader and shorter, or at least proportionally, you'd have a Rift blade almost. It is very similar in construction, but not quite. It uses the modified reverse Tanto blade shape. It uses Benchmade's axis lock system, but the construction is a little different. Instead of aluminum, an aluminum handle with nested steel liners, this one uses full steel liners. These are sort of black coated, and then with G10 scales, and then the liners and the scales are they finish in the same place. They're flush. The G10 is flat, sort of like the 940. It's got this milled-in groove on either end with some flats here and then some reliefs. You know, very reminiscent of the 940, but just executed differently. And in these sloping relief areas, we've got some scalloped machining, really revealing the beauty of this black and gray G10. The knife uses Benchmade's, my favorite, by the way, Parkerized split arrow clip. I know somebody thinks it looks phallic, but I really like it. I think it's stylish, holds adequately, and it's not as clunky as the Emerson style clip. And I love the Parkerized finish. Love it. Wears like iron and looks great as it wears. It doesn't scratch and chip and peel. It just wears to little shiny areas on the edges. Okay, let's go over some specs. Blade length on the Rift, 3.67 inches. So what is that? More than 3 5/8, almost 3 11/16. So it's a 1/4 inch longer than a 940 in blade length, roughly. Handle length 4.6 inches. How about that? How about that? Huh. Less than an inch longer is the handle than the blade. So that's like better than a 1-to-1 ratio. If you call that inch your standard for how much blade you lose because of a pivot, generally if it were a 3-inch blade and a 4-inch handle, we'd call that 1-to-1. So this is 3.67 inch blade, but only a 4.6 inch handle. Very economical. Giving us an overall length of 8.27 inches. Blade stock thickness, not very thick, is it? 0.114 inches. You know, significantly broader knife blade than the 940 while we're here looking at it. Same blade thickness, just a little under an eighth. This might be even thinner than a 940 blade. I have to go measure mine to tell you for sure. What does that mean? Well, what it means is the main bevel grind is going to be much shallower. A 940 has a main bevel grind of 10 to 12 degrees inclusive. This one about 7 or 8. It comes to an extremely thin cutting edge, at least this particular rift does. Let's keep going here. Don't want to get bogged down in the rest of the review yet. Thickness of the handle, 0.56 inches, so not super thick and chunky in thickness. The weight, not bad, 4.8 ounces. Could be a little lighter, but 4.8, not bad. Skeletonization of the liners, there is none. That's probably why it's so heavy. Blade steel is 154 cm. Heat treated to 58 to 61 Rockwell. I will never complain about having that steel in a knife. I love it. As I said, handle material black and gray layered G10. Liners of stainless steel are 420J2 variety. The clip, that gorgeous split arrow parkerized clip, is reversible. Tip up only, left or right. Finish is available, and this is where it gets tricky. The knife is available in Benchmade's normal plain edge satin / stonewashed finish. If you get the satin finish, you get plain edge only. The black coated BK1 coated blade comes in either plain edge like you see here, or the combo edge serrated from butt out to about here, not from butt, or from base of cutting edge out to about here. Also, there is a sprint run or a limited edition of this knife last year. Carbon fiber scales with CPM M4 blade steel. And I believe like what they called a clear Cerakote, which really wasn't clear. It was sort of the same color as the steel would be if it weren't coated, but it was not clear. I know the Contigo came M4 Cerakoted, and I'm pretty sure the Rift came that same way. I haven't seen too darn many of those knives, though. Okay, now let's get to impressions and ergos and all that good stuff. We don't really need to talk, do we, about the utility and the cutting ability of this blade shape. It's a bigger blade, a better slicing blade than a 940. But you know, you do give up some handling and some pocketability to get there. It's the same basic shape, longer, broader, thinner than the 940. And by thinner, I mean a shallower main bevel grind and a little thinner behind the edge. How thin? Well, that secondary bevel I've got on, guys, is 17 degrees per side, and look how tiny it is. And by the way, yeah, you're not going to believe this when I say it, but although it wasn't very sharp, Benchmade's factory secondary edge bevel was 17 degrees. I just replicated it, and it was dead consistent from base to tip on both sides. Unbelievable. And this is a non-modified sharpening choil. This little this cutout comes exactly to the end of the plunge grind, right here where my fingernail is, and then there's this little kick out, a little chamfer placed on that choil. So where that cutting edge starts is dead flat blade. You'll look, there's no flaring at the base of that cutting edge whatsoever on either side. It's just perfectly executed. In fact, this whole blade is perfectly executed. Just a wonderful job by Benchmade. One thing I will talk about before we get to overall ergos is I do have some history with the Rift. A very dear friend of mine bought one of the first Rifts when it was a coated blade, and we never could get that knife to have any kind of decent action. If we set that pivot up so that you could close it and open it like this, and this one's not super free, that knife had so much side-to-side play, it felt like a gas station knife that was a year old. It was, I mean, you could just sit there and wiggle that blade side to side. I never could get it right. My buddy Donnie, who owned it, sent it into Benchmade, and it came back to him. It looked like they'd taken an end mill, just a little larger than the washers, and had gone down and touched the blade and removed the BK1 coating to get down to steel. And it wasn't even how much of the coating they removed. So I don't know if there's a flatness issue or a coating thickness issue or what. It was not like that from the factory the first time. All the coating was intact. A couple subsequent knives I've seen from Benchmade Axis Lock with BK1 coating, this one included, had that coating milled off from the factory. So this one has the coating milled off. It does show some primer on about half that milled circle. Now, having said all that, let's just call that what it is. The BK1 coating causes action problems in an Axis Lock knife. Just problems from the standpoint that it's very hard to get the knife to be free without blade play. One of the reasons I try to opt myself for non-coated blades in an Axis Lock. I don't know how that Cerakote works out on the M4, but Cerakote can be a little gloppy and thickness can vary. I'm not I'm not real optimistic about that. You guys who have them, Contigos and whatnot with CPM M4, weigh in on that. But all the problems I had with Donnie's Rift, I got to tell you, of all the coated Benchmades I've handled, this particular Rift action's pretty darn good. It's not a free dropping blade if I set it up with no blade play, but it's very close and it's getting better the more I use it. Let's talk about the rest of the ergos. A lot of guys who have Rifts and have reviewed them on YouTube have really talked about these sharp corners. In fact, I think Nut and Fancy and Toad Sticker both have in their videos where they've taken a Dremel and chamfered that corner. I'm going to sort of grip it in all the grips and see what I think. Now, for a knife that probably is marketed as a tactical knife, the lack of jimping is rather conspicuous, isn't it? But let's see. In a saber grip, and really what is kind of a short-ish handle for the blade length, look at how my fingers fall. This little bump in the back comes right between my ring finger and pinky. There's enough of a thumb ramp and enough of a finger choil that I don't feel like I could possibly slide forward on that blade even with no jimping. This scalloped texturing in the handle, pretty darn effective. I'm gripping this knife pretty tightly, and I'm not feeling super hot spots by these sharp corners. Let's go to hammer grip here. Again, I mean, I can feel them, but not badly so. I love this little bump down here. This control it gives you at the back of the hand is really kind of amazing. Let's go to this the draw cut grip. That's interesting too. It's very hand filling out here on the fingers. This curve at the spine just hits just right, and because of the way the knife contacts the palm or really doesn't contact the palm in that grip, I don't feel this bump in any kind of a way that irritates. Still haven't gripped the knife in a way that the clip felt irritating. I can tell it's there, but not in an irritating way. Let's go to reverse grip. Butter. Very nice. I guess you could knock those corners off a little more. I guess right through here especially. But they don't bother me. I don't know. This is really a knife, guys, that I didn't expect to like as much as I do. I sort of had some prejudice against it because of my experience with my friend's knife, and you know, I guess intellectually I knew it wasn't the model's fault. It was just an axis lock, a particular single unit of an axis lock model knife that just never was quite right. You know, it was part coating, part flatness, part parallelism, just not a good one. This one though, really a good one. It's getting freer the more I use it, and actually whatever blade play was there when I put the knife together seems to be disappearing as it settles in. It's just really good. Really good. I kind of expected to have a hard time reviewing this knife for you all because I didn't think it was going to be very positive, but the more time I spend with it, the more I kind of like it. It got pretty sharp too, I think. We'll take my spec sheet here, my little cheat sheet. Now this isn't as limp as that Natchez shooter supply paper or phone book paper, but this is that sort of recycled kids notebook paper. Kind of limp, but you can barely hear that thing going through. Oops. Bad angle. Bad angle. Got a nice little S curve going there. Very cool. I guess the Rift sells for what, about $150 or $60? Doesn't seem to be getting much love, does it? A lot of people might say that blade steel is a notch below S30V. I don't know about that. 154 cm, the American version of ATS 34, what now has become sort of an old, boring steel. I don't find it boring at all. I kind of love it. It gets really sharp much more easily than S30V does. Edge holding maybe not quite as good, but you know, what's edge holding to a guy who sharpens knives? As long as it's not ridiculously bad, like AUS6 or poorly heat treated 8CR or something like that. Who cares? You know, who cares about the difference in edge retention between S30V and 154 cm? Really? I'll take it. I might have to buy one of these. So Ryan, thanks for letting me hang out with your knives for a few days. Get them back to you in the mail tomorrow, my friend. Grace to you, my friends, and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Remember the word and Ryan's Rift are sharp.